So good morning. So today is the second day of the Princeton Initiative, and today we will do a little bit of monetary and macrofinance. And I will introduce a baseline model with idiosyncratic risk, and then Gautam will take over and we'll talk about bank regulation in a model with the financial sector. And then I will come back and talk about monetary policy more particularly, and then Andre will talk about unconventional monetary policies. Okay. So I would like to step back and provide a few foundational comments. So what I will do today is talk about the money model. It's a simple model. It's actually a one-sector model. So unlike what Julie presented yesterday, where you have these experts and households, now I will only have households, okay, and try to understand that type of model. And then Gautam and Andre will actually put the financial sector on top of it. And then you have this ether, the wealth share coming around. But what I will do here as a starting point is to have only one sector. Okay? And I will start with a frictionless benchmark, just as a benchmark, then add financial frictions. And then, these financial frictions, I will stop here and then I open the floor to Gautam to talk about bank regulation with financial frictions. And then I come back, talk about monetary frictions and the monetary policy, and then I prepare the floor essentially for Andre to talk about unconventional monetary policy. So, but when you study money, of course, the three roles of money is to be a store of value. So you can have some fundamental cash flow due to backing. So typically when you have commodity money, it's backed by some gold and it provides you some backing. Or you can actually back it with some foreign exchange, with some foreign currency based on an exchange rate regime, or you can have some fiscal backing. We will talk about this, the fiscal theory of the price level, where it's backed by some fiscal primary surpluses. Or you can also have some non-cash flow benefits, and then money has a role to overcome intertemporal financial frictions, and we will talk about that. You probably know the old G. Samuelson model and all this, and that's already there in these type of models, or spatial separation a la Townsend models. And what we will talk is about uninsured idiosyncratic risk. So that's, all of you will get your own Brownian motion, personal Brownian motion. That's a gift we give you in the Princeton Initiative when you come home. And it moves up and down your mood. And then we talk about the store of value. And it's not only the money, which can be a store of value, other assets. It competes with other assets as a store of value. Now, the second role is medium of exchange. Then the money helps to overcome the double coincidence of wants problems. So that it helps in this regard. And that's about intratemporal frictions. Okay, the finance are intertemporal. This is intratemporal. And we will talk about this, the third as well. And then the third aspect is the unit of account. Okay, so what currencies are debt contracts written? What currencies are wage contracts written? What prices are sticky in what currency? Okay, that's the unit of account. How do we think? In what currency do we think? In a sense. And so price stickiness, Andre will come to that to put the new Keynesian elements into the model as well. Okay. So of course the core question is, what's the value of money? How high is the value of money? And that's the same question as determining the price level. I will not go into details about the price level determination. We won't have time to that. But the price level we typically denominate by the script P. So that's a price of real good, a basket of goods in units of money. The value of money is just 1 over P. Okay, it's the same thing. And there are two aspects which economic considerations justify the value of money for a given equilibrium. And the determination question is, does the model have a unique prediction of the value of money, a unique price level? Or more broadly, which economic forces lead to a coordination such that we have a unique price level determination? So what are the different monetary theories? How you can classify it? You can classify it this way. So you have some backing theories. The value of money derives from fundamental cash flows that are backed by the store of value role. So money is just another asset, or for example, is like the FTPL, and we come to this fiscal theory of the price level as well. So they are really backed by some, commodity or by some future primary surpluses. Or you can also have some bubble theories. So the money is valued because it can be passed on to others, and the others are, with the rational expectations framework, they are willing to take on this asset without fundamental value. And then it can happen with intertemporal financial frictions in incubate markets. That's what I will do first. Or it can happen with intratemporal monetary frictions, cash advance constraint, transaction cost, things like that. That also can lead to some bubbly forms of money. Okay. And money can also be, there are some theories where money is purely a unit of account. So the value of money derives from the role of money as a unit of account. So if you think about the famous Woodford paper, where there's a cashless economy, there's no cash, it's purely a unit of account. Okay. Now let me jump over that. So what I want to do is I want to develop a simple model and essentially start with a simple model, set it up, do a frictionless benchmark, introduce financial frictions, so intertemporal financial frictions, and then introduce intratemporal monetary frictions, okay? And see how the value of money is derived and what are the components which determine the value of money. The value of money, if the value of money changes, of course, it leads to inflation or deflation, depending how the value of money changes. I will not go into determinants question today, given the time constraints. So here's the model. It's very similar what we did so far. It's just we have only one sector, so all of you are in the same sector. You're essentially identical, except that you have idiosyncratic shocks. Okay, so that's one of you. You have a time preference rate rho. All of you are equally patient or impatient. You have log consumption, and you might derive some utility from government expenditure. So government expenditure is G times K. K is essentially the size of the capital stock. We say if the capital stock grows, the government expenditures grow at the same rate. So that's just keeping the scale invariance with respect to K. But it's gray because you can also throw it out. It doesn't change anything. It would make some changes for the welfare analysis, whether you could derive utility from government expenditures or not. But for the action or behavior of the individuals, it doesn't do anything. And then we have the same as yesterday. So there's a change in net worth of this individual I tilde. And if you consume, the net worth is going down. You get return on money. So this MB stands for money and bonds together. I will later open it up. Okay, so this is whether something is monies or T-bills or T-bonds. At this stage, it's all the same. Later, I will open it up to if there's money, and then there's some treasury bonds, and there will be short-term T-bills and long-term bonds. So we will open this up later on. But at this point, I put everything together. There's only this form of money. Everything is the same. That's a real return on money. Now, the portfolio share you put into capital is 1 minus theta. So theta you put in this, or you can write it 1 minus theta. That's the excess return you get on holding some physical capital. So what your balance sheet looks like, that's your balance sheet. You have some machine, you operate something, it produces A times K like yesterday. And you have some money, government debt money, this MB, and that is your net worth. Okay? All of you will hold some money. And essentially, all of you are essentially the same, except that some of you has experienced some positive shocks in the past, others have experienced negative shocks. So some of you will be wealthier than others. Okay? So but the wealthier guys of you, there will be scaled up versions of the poorer guys. Okay? They behave the same, the portfolio share is the same, and all this, everything in shares is the same. It's just the wealthy guy is just 10 times as wealthy as the poor guy, and he does everything 10 times more. He consumes 10 times as much. He has 10 times as many bonds. He has 10 times as many machines.
So
yeah.
There's no borrowing constraint.
There's no borrowing constraint.
Okay, and because of that, everything is linear.
Yes. So here is so the output. So as I said, A times K. So K is the number of machines you have, or trees, or whatever you want to call them, physical capital. That's the output. And then some of the so out of the output you invested, this, remember yesterday we had this iota, the investment rate, as a unit of K. So that's what you produce. Your tree throws off some output, apples. Some of the apples you eat, and some of the apples you plant to get a new apple tree. No? That's what this is. And you can see the K iota, that's the investment rate. That's also, if you bring the K over there, that's some adjustment cost. You get some new capital stock from that. Okay? And that's a depreciation of the capital stock like yesterday. Now we also have later on, I will not introduce that, there's some transaction cost. You have to pay, some of the resources go away from the transaction cost on this element here. Okay, so that's only when we introduce monetary frictions, the transaction, they involve some transaction costs. And so the capital stock, you can build new capital by investing in the investment rate iota. There's depreciation, the capital stock depreciates. And then you have essentially a shock on your capital stock. Some of you, the machine breaks down or the tree falls over. Or you find new ways to rearrange the machines in a better way that it becomes more productive. So the way you should measure this case is K measured is not the number of machines, but efficiency units in a sense. Okay. And you can also buy some from other fellows. Okay. Of course, in aggregate later on, what somebody buys and the other has to sell, now it aggregates to zero. Okay. But the important thing is, everybody of you gets the Z tilde. Tilde is for the idiosyncratic risk. Okay. Remember yesterday there was a DZ or DZ. That was the aggregate shock. Everybody gets the same. This is now your own personal. That's also why there's a superscript I tilde. It's your personal Brownian. Okay. And then there's also a tax on the output. That's you have to pay some tax to the government because the government also needs some money to finance the spending. There's no aggregate shock DZ. We will introduce this later on. And there's a government budget constraint. So what's the government budget constraint? Remember, G times K, that's, if you're G times K, that's what the government spends. Tau A times capital K, so capital K is the aggregate capital stock, is the tax revenue in real terms. If you multiply it by the price level, that's the government budget in nominal terms. Okay. The primary surplus. Now, how do you finance that? You can actually issue new government bonds. That's the issuance rate, mu MB. And of course, you also have to pay the interest on the existing government debt. Okay. So if you issue more at a faster pace new bonds, then you have to pay interest. Then you free up some space to finance some deficit here. Okay. Federico?
Why do you have distortionary taxes instead of having taxes
Lump sum.
Is that important or it's just?
It is important to some extent, but it's more natural to have, a proportional tax. So why do I do it this way? I want to keep everything scale invariant. So if you're poor and if you're rich, you always pay proportionally to your wealth or to your income. Okay. So everything.
It's a taxability thing, but it has no.
No, it has substantive implications too. So if I were to do a lump sum, I tax the poor guy as much as the rich guy. This aggregation would not work anymore.
Okay.
Yes. So this is the velocity. So this will only come after Gautam has presented. When I introduce the transaction cost, that's the velocity of money. So essentially, if you want to run a higher velocity, you have a higher transaction cost. Okay. That's a good point. So, but we will come to this only later.
Do you have any transversality condition for KT or MP?
Yes, we have transversality conditions as well. So I didn't. So it essentially comes from this. Okay, you cannot go. The net worth cannot go infinitely negative. But because we have log utility, we have a transversality. So we have a transversality condition at the individual level. So each citizen, I tilde, has a transversality condition. We don't have a transversality condition at the aggregate level. Okay, because the optimization happens at the individual level. Yes. Okay, so let me just say two things. This is the primary surplus, this is a real one, that's a nominal one. And the S we call S, that is referred to as primary surplus per unit of K. So it's before multiplying with K. So the models, even yesterday, were set up, everything is scale invariant with respect to K. No? If K is twice as large, the whole economy is the same. Everything is just doubled. Okay? So things are scaling up with K. Now what is this? This is how many bonds I print. That's how the fraction, or this part of it, I have to pay off the interest on the existing bonds. This mu check, I call this mu check, is essentially if I print more bonds than I have to pay, I need for my interest payments, then I can free up. So that's my mu check, how much I dilute essentially the value of money or bonds beyond what I need for interest payments. And what matters is typically always this difference. You can see already what's the return, the real return on bond. Of course, if I dilute the bond, if I print more, I dilute, it's bad. But if I use it for interest payment, the bondholders get it too, so it doesn't really matter. What matters is this difference. Okay. Okay. So what I want to do is I will set up first a setting where this frictionless benchmark, there's no idiosyncratic risk. So all your Brownians are degenerate, it's just a constant, and there are no transaction costs. And then I introduce the financial frictions, the intertemporal frictions. And then afterwards, after Gautam has presented his part in a two-setting model, I come back to this one sector models and introduce monetary frictions with the transaction cost as a function of velocity of money.
So here, money and bond are the same, right? They're all in MB.
So far, money and bonds are the same. So that's why I call it MB. Later, I will open it up. So essentially, money will actually, is used then for this. I can use to overcome the double coincidence of wants or medium of exchange role. Bonds I can't. Okay, so money is a store of value, and a medium of exchange has a medium of exchange role. Bonds is only a store of value. I cannot go to the shop and say, okay, here are my government bonds. I want to buy some ice cream. Okay, nobody says, what do you want to do with the government bonds?
But then bond needs to have a higher return, otherwise people will not.
That's correct. That will happen. So that once we introduce this, there will be a delta I. The bond will have a higher return than money. But so far, I clumped it together. I'm focusing on the store of value only. Okay. Later, I will open it up. But then we have this transaction cost. Okay, frictionless benchmark. So let me introduce some notation. So like yesterday, we have this QK. That's the price of a single machine or a single tree, okay, in efficiency units measured. And then I call this QMB. That's the price per unit of K of the government bond. So QMB times K is the real value of all the government bonds, okay? So but let's put it, this is the nominal value of all government bonds divided by this price level. It's the real value of all government bonds divided by K, because I want to make this similar. Everything is scale invariant with respect to K. So I have used notation such that what I solve is QB. So I can solve the whole model ignoring K essentially. Okay? And then I solve for the K exposed, and then I can solve that. I denote also something QT, which is the QK, the price of a machine, and the per unit of K, the value of money. I call this, and that's essentially total net worth. So total net worth, yesterday total net worth in the economy was the price of a machine times all the machines in the economy, no? But now I have the machines and I have money, okay? And the combination of both, that's total net worth. And per unit of K, that's what I denote also as Q. Okay? That's similar to than yesterday. Now, the most important variable you have to memorize is var theta. Okay? That's a theta with a little var in front of it, so some squirrely theta. And what is that? That's a fraction of wealth, which is money wealth or bond wealth or nominal wealth. So the total wealth is, as I said, is this, the value of all the machines, the value of all the money in real terms, and that's the value of money divided by total wealth. So that's my var theta. And this var theta will come up in Andre's talk all the time, okay? So burn it in your brain, var theta. Should we solve together var theta? So you can also say it's also QMB, because you can divide by this case, Then you get QMB divided by QK plus QMB. Okay, that's a wealth theta. It's a fraction of wealth, which is money wealth or nominal wealth, and not 1 minus wealth theta is a fraction of wealth, which is this machine wealth, the physical capital wealth.
I have an additional question, sorry. So MB3 is a nominal value of one bond, or?
Which MB? No, it's the nominal value of all the bonds, the total outstanding bonds. So this is all together, all government bonds and money, everything together, because we clump it all together, divided by the price level. So this is like the real value of all government bonds together, and this is per unit of K.
But in your budget constraint and the equation, we multiply this with
That's the value of all the money outstanding. I have to pay interest on it. So that's the whole budget constraint for the whole. It's not per bond or. Yeah. Okay, so typically the way we solve these models, we always postulate certain price processes and then we derive return processes. No? So the price process, we have a postulate one for that. And there's no aggregate Brownian, okay? So there might be idiosyncratic Brownian, but they don't impact the prices. So we only have a drift. Isn't this beautiful? And also for the value of this QMB only has a drift. It doesn't have a volatility loading on, there's no aggregate Brownian. No? We have only idiosyncratic Brownians. And similarly, of course, the fraction of wealth, which is nominal wealth, is also only a drift. Okay. Later we will have there's some plus, some volatility, dz. But so far we don't have aggregate risk. And as Julius derived yesterday, the SDF, that's Xi is our SDF, stochastic discount factor, of all of you guys, there's no risk in the setting, so it's just a risk-free rate.
Why don't we have a price of idiosyncratic risk?
So yeah, in a sense, you have a price of idiosyncratic risk as well, but not in this benchmark. It will come in a minute. In the benchmark, sigma is zero. Yes. In the benchmark, when we switch off, or even if you have complete markets, you can perfectly insure each other. Then.
And one more question: the real return on money.
Oh, this all R is always real. I is our nominal.
And, is the real return on money equal to R? The risk-free return?
In this benchmark, yes.
Okay, because of we shut down.
Yes,
Okay.
but I will bring it back, the risk. No,
Okay,
bring it
okay.
back. Yes. Idiosyncratic risk. So this is just our budget, our market clearing condition, total consumption, total investment, iota times the capital stock, and then the government is also eating some of our apples. That's total output of apples. No? And of course, the capital stock, when you buy and sell, I said at the capital markets clearing, that was this delta K, that has to sum up to zero. You can only buy from somebody else.
We currently do not have an aggregate price level in the sort of new Keynesian sense, right? We have a PT, KT, but or do we?
We do. I mean, we don't have any stickiness in the new Keynesian sense. That's we have to wait for Andre.
So,
But there is a price level.
Just in terms of the pure aggregate price level, do we assume it is then, in this case, determined purely by the government's money creation process?
That's correct, yes. So if you print more bonds, you will affect the price. If you start out with a certain, let's say times zero, a certain number of bonds, that determines then the price level.
So this is really kind of a conventional fiscal theory, like the government budget, like I search for price manipulation because the government budget constraint.
That's correct, yes.
Is it crucial to have the delta term here in this model?
So is it this one? Crucial meaning, so what it is crucial in a sense, later when we have idiosyncratic risk, let's suppose some of you have a negative shock and I have a positive shock, okay? So what happens, you become poorer because some of your machines break down, okay? But it's also the case that now you have very few machines relative to government bonds. So let's suppose you have a portfolio of 50-50 and the machines break down, and so you don't have so many machines left, so your portfolio now is much more tilted towards government bonds. You're poorer, but you still have the government bonds, but only 30 machines rather than 50 machines. So what you do is you want to buy some of the machines to go back to a 50-50 portfolio, let's say, to come back and you buy some of the machines from me. And my machines suddenly gained because I found a different way to arrange them, and I can sell some of the machines to you.
So is that related to the trading risk, so that at the end of the world, like at the end of the day, everyone price the machine rates the same?
Yeah, so there's one market for machines. There's only one price. And the trading is always at a fair, a fair value. Yes. So so the trading itself, there's no bid-ask spread or any friction in terms of trading these machines. Okay, we have markets, while raising goods market, money and capital markets, they all have to clear. Okay, I jump a little bit quickly on this because you did it already yesterday. Return on capital, you have a dividend yield like what Yuli did yesterday. The only difference now is we also have a tax, okay? You will be taxed. Okay, sorry for that. And then you have a capital gains rate, so that the capital gains is because Q times K. K is drifting upwards. How much is K drifting? That was this one. So remember, when there's depreciation, K is going down. And then if IOT is positive, the K is drifting up with its adjustment cost. And then the Q is drifting. That's just the drift of my QK. The QK is drifting, okay? Now what I do is, instead of this tax, you don't like taxes. No, let's put the budget constraint into so we see government expenditures, okay? Of course, more government expenditures means higher taxes, so I can replace the tau with the cheese and just have to modify things. And of course, the government budget constraint, this QMBs, and then the drift, that's a dilution of government bonds comes in too. Because I can actually tax you with taxes, or I can dilute the existing government bonds, okay? So that's the return on capital. So that's essentially what this said. That's the government budget constraint. So I plug this in here to get that, okay? And you can see if this goes up, the taxes can actually go down. Okay? That's the return on capital. So that's the two things. I can have machines and government money bonds. That's it. That's my portfolio choice, only two assets.
So government has like two options, right? Either it is taxing or it is choosing that new
Yeah, but it's because of the budget constraint, if you increase taxes, you don't have to dilute so much.
Like it's a combination of.
Yes, you can. If you choose one, you choose indirectly the other one too. So you can say I create inflation. So let me rephrase it. You can actually tax the output or tax inflation tax.
But like in this model, you have like that active passive different regime or.
No, I don't go into that. I have not the monetary and fiscal authority here. It's just one government. I haven't split. Later I will talk about that. I split up the monetary and fiscal authority, and then they play potentially a game with each other. At this stage, it's just one government. That's the Fisher equation. The real return on the government bond is just the nominal return minus inflation. Inflation is just, the price level, how it changes over. It's capital gains on the price level, which is typically because inflation is negative. Okay. And you can write this in this notation. Okay, and then you can just rewrite this way or this way. Okay, so he said, okay, the nominal return, so this mu check essentially has the I inside. You see this mu check was mu MB minus I, so there's a minus, so that's what this plus I is in here. And this is the capital gains of the money, the government bond. Typically it's negative capital gains, it's inflation. Okay, let's say the K, if the economy grows, that pushes up to get the higher return on the government bonds. and this is how much the price changes of money. Okay. Just different way of writing it, because I want to keep it similar, and then I can subtract it from each other. Because you make a portfolio choice between capital, the machines, and government bonds or / money. And I compare the two real returns. The other choice you have to make is how much to invest the IOTA. And I think you did this yesterday too. That's Tobin's Q. That's just a static choice in this setting. No? Just so if the price of capital is high, I convert more consumption goods into physical capital because I can sell it at a high price. Okay? And it depends on the adjustment cost here. And this was the adjustment cost I put yesterday on the form on the whiteboard. If this is this log specification with the adjustment cost little phi, then this just becomes that. Okay. So it just says if Q goes up, the investment rate is going up too. And it's in this linear fashion once you have this capital phi and this nice log specification. Okay, and this is the same for everybody. So everybody has the same investment rate. Okay. So if the price of capital is higher, people invest more, then the capital stock grows faster. Okay, and the whole economy grows faster because the economy is just driven by the aggregate capital stock. It's an AK economy. What's a goods market clearing condition? That's what we had yesterday too, and we just had it. You remember there was log utility, so it's rho times so you have Q times K, so QT was QK plus QMB, no? So this is the total net worth of the guys. That's what they consume for consumption. That's what you consume for investment, so the apples you plant in order to get new trees. And that's what the government consumes. Okay, that's total demand for apples. The total output of apples is that. Everything is written in a way that, I can just, everything is always scale invariant with respect to K, so I can divide by K. Okay. So if you solve that, so solve for Qt and a fraction, 1 minus var theta of Qt is the capital, and a fraction var theta of Qt is QMB. But if you solve that, get this expression, so you get this iota, and I just plug in for A. A check is just A minus the government expenditures. Okay. So this, if you ever write A check, it's just A minus little g. So just plug in the optimal investment condition in here, you get this expression. So what's nice is that you can solve this explicitly, and I haven't done any portfolio optimization. So what I did is I did iota optimization, and what other optimization did I do? What are 3 optimizations you have to do? What are the 3? Iota was 1. How much to convert consumption goods into physical capital goods? What was the second one? Consumption. This was the rho times net worth. No? We did this already. And we have goods market clearing condition. If we put all these 3 together, then I get the Q, which is QK plus QMB, is this guy here. Okay. So I can just, so that's, this guy is restated, or it's just written again. This iota I've solved. And this, the fraction 1 minus var theta is QK, and the fraction var theta is QMB. Okay. So I've solved everything except for one thing. What's the one thing? The var theta. How do you get the var theta? Exactly, that's the remaining optimization, the portfolio choice. But it turns out these type of models you can solve very easily. Solve everything except for the portfolio choice, even goods market clearing condition and everything in it. And var theta turns out to be the key variable. Okay, what fraction of the wealth is money wealth or nominal wealth? Okay, in equilibrium, this model var theta is equal to theta. Theta was a portfolio weight all of you put into the money world. And because you all scale up versions of each other, you all have the same theta. Okay. Once we have two sectors and something like that, there will be different thetas floating around. Not var thetas, but thetas. But in this model, it's only the same theta. Okay. Okay, so then we have to do the portfolio choice. Okay, how do we do a portfolio choice? In this model now, in the benchmark case where we have no idiosyncratic risk, it's very simple. The return has to be equalized now. So the return on the money has to be equal to the return on capital, has to be equal to the risk-free rate. Because if there's no risk, it's very simple. Then we just plug in what we did before. We derived that. We had the return on the drift of k. That was the drift of k. It cancels out. The drift of k is also the growth rate of the economy. No? It cancels out. And then you use the Gutzbach-Gehring condition we have derived. We use the definition of var theta. So qk is just 1 minus var theta q, or qmb is var theta qt. And from Ito's lemma, we derive the drift of var theta is given by this expression. Okay, that's just the definition of var theta. Remember, var theta was qmb divided by qmb plus qk. And then you just do Ito's lemma on that, and you get the drift of var theta. So you put this all together, and then I get this expression here. The drift of var theta is rho. So how much does the nominal value have to drift up over time? If you're more patient, or if you're less patient, if rho is higher, it has to drift up more. If you dilute more, it also has to drift up higher. Okay, that's what you get from that. And this equation we will expand on, okay, for more general settings with idiosyncratic risk and things like that.
In this return comparison, I don't see the transaction cost.
Oh, no, we are still in the case no transaction cost. I said no idiosyncratic risk, no transaction cost.
Why would they demand bonds then?
No, there would be indifferent.
I'm saying on the productive thing is capital, right? So,
Yes.
So why would you demand bond if it doesn't have any value?
No, it has value in a sense that the government taxes you. Holding capital, the government will tax you, no? And then what will happen, the government has some general, so holding bonds, you don't have to pay the tax. You pay the tax on the output. Do you see?
You pay taxes on your capital, right?
On your capital or A times K on the revenue, yes.
So if you hold bonds, you don't pay taxes.
No.
Okay.
So the tax is on the physical output, what you produce. And if you have government bonds, you don't have this.
This is like actually investment.
In a sense, yes. And of course, the way the bond is supported by, so it has to be, in this case, the government has to run some primary surpluses. No?
At some point in the future.
Some point in the future, yes.
So here it's like lifetime budget comes all that matters.
Second?
So here, like, all that matters is like the lifetime budget concept of
That's correct.
not
Yes.
the like in time.
That's correct. So it's yes. So this is just difference equations in a sense. That's what matters. So I can multiply this by var theta. So this is a geometric drift, no? I can also multiply var theta, then I get the arithmetic drift. So if I multiply that, so then I get this equation here. So there's a solution to that. This version is preferred. So if var theta is 0, that's satisfied. So if the bond is worth nothing, it's satisfied. But it can also be some positive value. So at least it allows for that this var theta is 0. Now I can, for interpretation, I can integrate this forward, and then I get essentially the value of fraction of government bond of the nominal value is given by, if I integrate this forward, it's given this equation here. Okay. So you can see the rho, that's discount, but I do it from t to infinity. And I can replace this dilution rate. I can also, that's in equilibrium, has to be equal to the primary surpluses. Okay, that was our S. That's only this divided by Q. Okay. Now, in a sense, you see already some FTPL equation here. Do you see it? So that's a discounted present value of primary surpluses is the fraction which is, I can multiply it by k, q times k, so get the qt's over there and the k, then this is like the total real value of government bonds is equal to the discounted primary surpluses. Okay, so, and then S times capital K this is only the primary surpluses per unit of K. And if I multiply by K, I have to multiply on both sides. Then I get that. Federico?
In this model, if we said, money is in zero net supply.
Well, that's different.
Yeah.
Here it's a positive net supply.
It's a particular case. You can say that the new check is constantly zero.
No, but that just means I have positive amount of money and then it doesn't grow. But what you say, there's no supply of outside money at all.
Okay.
So in this model, there's outside money provided by the government or government bond. No. So that's what the New Keynesian guys do. They say, okay, there's a zero supply of outside money, okay, the cashless limit. Okay. Here we say, no, there is some money supply. In particular, if you take the bond supply and the money together, there has to be I haven't met any government has no government debt.
Okay, just to understand what so here the supply of money is important because it affects the valuation equation.
That's correct. So there's a supply of money. So the initial one, there's an initial value, and then how you print new money, of course, affects the current value of money too.
I see.
Because if you print at a faster rate, people know the government will start diluting the value of money, so they won't value it so much. So they are perfectly foresight. There's uncertainty in the general setting, but they're rational in this regard.
How important is like time zero amount of money?
I mean, if you double the initial amount, it's just the price will be double 2. The price level will be double 2. So, but it pins down the price level, no? The initial price level. If you triple the initial amount of money, the price level will be triple. Okay. But for the analysis, for the real interest rates and all this and investment, what matters is the change over time. Because you can say, okay, I multiply the money supply by 1,000 initially, then I have to put in all prices just 3 extra zeros on it, and it will be the same. But the price level is different, but just by the initial amount. Okay, so now let's do the frictionless benchmark. Consider the steady state with a constant. So we consider only the constant var theta over time. Hence, then all these others have no subscript t's. And so the value of money evolution is the following. So this is not moving. So this is just given by this. So the money valuation equation just given. This rho has to be equal to mu check. Okay. So the government constraint becomes the following, that this QMB is just S over rho. And so everything simplifies to this setting. Okay, that's a frictionless benchmark. The value of money is given by this. Or the fraction of wealth, which is monetary wealth, is given by this expression. QK is given by this expression. And iota is given by this expression. Okay. So some observation, the value of money depends on the fiscal backing. So the primary surpluses determine what fraction of the wealth is monetary wealth. Okay. And it's a fiscal backing. So the higher S is, the higher is QMB, or the var theta. And the following are inversely related to the value of money. So if the value of money is higher, the value of capital is lower. Okay. So and hence the investment is lower as well, and the growth rate of the economy is lower. So let me just say, if the value of money is higher, it crowds out the value of physical capital. And if QK is lower, I don't want to convert so many consumption units into investment units. Hence, the iota will be lower, and that means the whole growth rate will be lower as well in the economy. So the growth rate of the economy, that's a different G. That's the growth rate of the economy is just given by the investment minus the delta. You just told me it was the last question. No, come on.
No, I was thinking about what you just said about the growth rate, what you said yesterday about resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Because yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, you said that a safe asset makes the system more resilient. Here, I know there is no risk. So
There's no aggregate risk in
yeah,
this
okay,
setting.
but we know that
Yes.
this would be a safe asset. But the safe asset also decreases the growth rate of the economy.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you reconcile?
No, in a sense, it decreases the growth rate of the economy. It increases the welfare in the economy.
Okay,
Because it allows you to insure each other.
I see.
So it can be, the growth rate can be very high, but you're very unhappy because you have to pay all idiosyncratic risk. So the question is, do you care more about the happiness and the welfare of the people or more about the GDP growth? Okay.
So what's exactly breaking down neutrality here? Is it like the tax rate, like the distortionary taxes? Or is it
Yes.
Yeah.
So the neutrality, we're still in the frictionless benchmark here. For this, we have to really go to the model with frictions. Okay. So here it doesn't, the question is a little bit, how attractive is the money relative to so I was jumping ahead at this. When there's idiosyncratic risk, then there's a welfare gain from insurance. No, here there's no welfare gain from insurance. Here's just a crowding out, in a sense. So that makes things worse.
But there is an equilibrium with the zero value of money in this economy, right?
There is,
So
yes.
there is neutrality in one equilibrium.
In one equilibrium, yes. Okay, I think I'm running behind. No, is this correct?
Yeah. Relative to what?
What's on the program?
By the program, we are done at 10:45, so you're already 10 past.
But it's only 10 now.
Oh, sorry, 9:45.
Oh, sorry, I have to speed up. Okay. I will now do the adding the financial frictions. So it's the same as before. So we have the price of capital, so that's the same. But the new thing now is we have this idiosyncratic risk. Okay. And as Federico or somebody mentioned, of course, there's a price of idiosyncratic risk, and that's this var sigma tilde. Okay, because whenever it's idiosyncratic, I put a little tilde on top of it. Of course, literally speaking, each of you can have a different price of risk. No? But in this model, everybody of you is just scale-up versions of each other, so it turns out to be the same. Okay? It just makes things simple. But in principle, it could be different from person to person. Otherwise, it's the same. So anything which is in color is new. Okay? What's in color now? You have some. Now, capital is risky. Money, of course, this is also in color, but it's the same as before, is not risky. Okay, now there's a trade-off. Either I can hold more physical capital, has idiosyncratic risk attached to it, or I can hold more money, has no idiosyncratic risk, but I might be diluted through inflation. Okay, because that's essentially which dilutes my money holding. Okay. Same thing as before. This actually is totally identical as before. And then we do the portfolio choice. So before we do this portfolio choice, so IOTA choice, consumption choice, goods market clearing condition, everything gets to this thing. It's always the same. Okay. It's only the portfolio choice which makes it interesting. So that's the portfolio choice. So that was our money, same as before, the return on money. The expected return on capital is now different. So the expected return on capital is the risk-free rate plus the price of idiosyncratic risk times idiosyncratic risk. Remember yesterday's Yuli's evaluation thing? That's what you always get. No? It's and then we compare the two. But it's always the risk-free rate and plus the risk premium, which consists of the a price of risk and idiosyncratic risk, or price of idiosyncratic risk and idiosyncratic risk. Now the expected return, that's what we have derived before. Dividend yield, I put in the taxes, the government, so that this term pops up. That's the capital gain in K, and it's the capital gain in Q. Okay. Okay. Why is there no eta term? A sigma K and sigma QK? Because sigma QK is not stochastic. There's no aggregate risk. No? Okay. Okay. So now if I have log utility, and that's what Yuli did yesterday too, the price of risk, the price of idiosyncratic risk is essentially the volatility of loading of your net worth on this idiosyncratic Brownian. No? And that is the idiosyncratic risk times the capital, the portfolio share you put into capital. Okay? If theta is higher, you put more into money, so this goes down, so you have less volatility of idiosyncratic risk. So that's the price of risk. So that goes in here. And by market clearing, I said the theta is equal to var theta. So we can just replace the theta with var theta. Okay? Everybody has the same theta. Now I get this equation here. That's a money valuation equation. The drift of var theta, the fraction of wealth, which is nominal wealth, has to go up if people become less patient. So if rho goes up, it has to be going up to compensate me for the loss of money dilution things. Okay, so the mu check. Of course, if I get nominal interest rate, then it goes the other way. So that's why the check is on it. So that's mu minus I. But it does not have to go up because I get something else. I get this insurance from retrading. And that's exactly what we had yesterday in the safe asset, remember? This Allen and Beth example. That's exactly what's going on here. I get the advantage. So if there's a lot of idiosyncratic risk, I can actually, if I suffer a negative shock, then I can sell off some of these government bonds and buy some more physical capital or consume, and that gives me this retrading, gives me some insurance. So I hold this money because I can retrade it later on. Okay, and because I get that, the drift doesn't have to be so high of this var theta. Okay, on this, I want to this equation. That's what you have to take away from.
Does it not have to hold for all different tildes?
For all different
Tildes, for different.
tildes.
Yeah, I mean.
What do you mean all different tildes? There's only one tilde.
No, I'm saying.
There's
So idiosyncratic risk can be realized differently for each individual.
Yes, but so we assume that all of you have the same sigma tilde. You mean you want some people higher and others lower? Then that's you can do this too.
No, I was just thinking like maybe it's implicit here, so the tax collected might be also different depending on how much is the realized shock. So
Yes. So you want the capital gains tax or something like that? Yeah. So what? Yeah. So that might affect the formula. What I do so far, I only do an output tax. That might, yes, homework. Let's suppose we tax capital gains. How does this affect things? The formula might be slightly different. But the basic idea would be the same. So the idea essentially, how much does this have to drift up? What does it have to compensate for? Compensate my impatience, compensate for this dilution, but it has to be the opposite from, I get the benefit, service flow from being able to retrade things. Okay. Now, I can do the same thing again, so I can just make this arithmetic drift. So it's this thing here. So in integral form, it's this. So money is now valued. Like before, I have this dilution. That's the primary surplus thing. So remember this minus mu check is just S over Q. So the primary surpluses is just the negative of the primary surpluses. And then I have this term here. Now it can happen that the primary surplus is always negative. Okay? Or put it differently, this dilution is always positive. But because of the second term, the value of money is still positive. Okay? Okay. So money can be valued for two reasons. because it promised me a cash flow from fiscal backing, or because it's a safe asset that facilitates idiosyncratic risk sharing. Okay. Now, this essentially, I want to study, let's say, the steady state where the value of money just stays constant. We have no aggregate risk, so not the value of money. The fraction of wealth, which is nominal wealth, stays constant. So all shares are constant. Then we have a non-monetary equilibrium, so this is worth nothing. The value of money is worth nothing. It's all physical capital is only valued. Then the investment rate is this, and the primary surpluses are 0. Or I can have another one, which is the monetary, where the store of value comes at. And so the value of money, the fraction of wealth, which is money wealth, is given by this expression. And you can see that this goes up if sigma tilde is higher. So a higher sigma tilde means more idiosyncratic risk. A higher fraction of the wealth is monetary wealth, and a lower fraction is physical wealth.
So it's a clarification question. The drift of work theta, you said that minus 1 minus work theta squared is like service flow. That's how.
This guy, yes.
Yes, that. So I'm having a hard time to relate how service flow is related to the share of capital in someone's portfolio. So like 1 minus work theta is the.
Yes.
Yeah.
So essentially, so 1 minus theta is the fraction of your wealth you put into machines. And the machines have idiosyncratic risk. So let's suppose you put very little fraction of your wealth into machines, they don't have so much idiosyncratic risk. So you don't need so much insurance needs. So you don't really value this so much because you don't have much idiosyncratic risk anyway. Now in the contrast, if you put a lot of your wealth into machines, then you have a lot of idiosyncratic risk to bear. Then you really value this retracing the service flow. Okay, and that's why there's this 1 minus theta or 1 minus 1 theta here. Does this answer your question, Jan?
Like in non-monetary equilibrium, it says like government needs to do something crazy, right? Because like if I ensure I generate a reasonable surplus, then my liabilities should be.
No, this was on the assumption, let's suppose the surplus is 0. Yes. So.
But like this service flow, if I have an asset in the economy which is just an ETF of this guy, if there's.
Oh, we had this yesterday,
I know.
No, so that I agree. So it could be. So the question is, it's a bubble now. The question is, where does the bubble sit on? Does it sit on the government bond or does it sit on an ETF? Okay. It could sit on half-half or 80-20. My argument is, generally the government will fight it and will try to make sure it sits on its own debt. Okay. And the government has tools to ensure that. Okay. So you wouldn't give it up. You just say, oh, let me set it on Bitcoin or something. If you're a rational government. Yes.
Is there something, is there a tension? So large data captures the size of the financial sector in some abstract way relative to physical wealth.
Financial sector, we have no financial, it's all the government bonds.
Like financial wealth, because we could add,
financial wealth, yes.
Like this is, central bank money, we could add bank money, credit, and so we could measure sort of financial wealth relative to.
Yeah, in a sense, let me just say, QK is the value of the machines. If you have a stock market, it's more reflecting the physical capital. But let's say government stuff, outside money, outside bonds.
So what I have in mind was, it seems to me in this case, the higher the idiosyncratic risk, the larger share of it will be held in financial wealth in this particular way that we define.
Yes.
And if we sort of compare economies across the world, riskier places don't necessarily have a lot of financial wealth relative to physical things. People go for physical things. So I was trying to see, maybe it's just the particular type of financial wealth we're looking at. This is more cash type wealth, but I wanted to ask if there's a tension there.
So let me rephrase it. If you go to more developing economies, there's less risk sharing. And then it's actually easier to issue some money and outside money stuff. Okay. You can also say whenever there's more risk in the system, then people have a higher savings need and they have to save in the safe asset thing. Whether that's a domestic safe asset or then the US dollar treasury, it's different. So if you make a leap, if China has no pension system and has no healthcare system or limited, people have to save more and they hold more, they get a lower return on their savings. Doesn't mean necessarily on the physical savings when there's a lot of idiosyncratic risk, but on the savings which is more government provided. So let me just say, so if the sigma tilde is larger than rho, then it actually is possible that you don't dilute at all, and that there's no primary surplus, so the primary surplus is also zero. There's no fiscal backing. The value of this safe asset comes purely from this bubbly component, that it provides the service flow.
I just want to clarify. So now the agents are homogeneous, right? Because now sigma tilde is non-zero. The realization of DZTI
Yes.
tilde matters. So different agents have different DRTK. So I tilde, so they would choose.
No, they are different. In that you are much more wealthy than me. You have 10 times as much wealth as me, but you do in terms of shares, in portfolio shares and all this, we are all identical. You do everything 10 times as much as I do. You buy 10 times as many bonds, you buy 10 times as many machines, you 10 times the wealth is 10 times, and the consumption is 10 times. So we are all different, but we scaled up versions of each other. That's the model is set up this way. That keeps everything very simple. If you have true heterogeneity in all dimensions, then it would be a mess to handle it.
Then in the previous benchmark case, since sigma tilde is zero, then everybody's the same.
That's correct. Everybody's totally the same.
Then also the delta KTI is also always zero, right?
KTI or
Delta
Delta K. The trade.
the trade.
Oh, then in the previous case, here it's moving. There's delta K. Yes, yes, like what we explained with the lady over there. Yes, yes. So let's suppose there's no money dilution. You can even dilute the value of money or the government bond, and you can have a primary deficit all the time. You can run a primary deficit all the time by diluting the value of the government bond, and people still want to hold it because it gives you the service flow. Okay. So we can push this idea further and even pick a dilution rate which is strictly positive, and it's feasible as long as the dilution rate is not too high. If it's too high, then the value of money goes to zero. But you can actually extract revenues all the time and have a primary deficit all the time. Okay. So permanent deficits are possible because the government can create seigniorage by mining the bubble. So you print new money that dilutes the claims on existing money holders, and people still know that's going on, but they're willing to do that. And here bubble mining acts like an inflation tax, but it's a tax on this risk sharing. So this retrading allows us to risk share. We derive utility from that because we can, through retrading, implicitly risk share, and we tax that. Okay, so observations from the relative, now it is the case that the value of money derives not only from the fiscal backing, but also from idiosyncratic risk, from this risk sharing. And it can actually be the fiscal backing is actually negative. The primary surpluses are negative. So eventually, so the following arguments are related that's the same as before. But the nominal interest rate paid on money does not matter at all. So we see that what matters is always this mu check. Okay. So mu check is how much you dilute the money. If I print more, but I give the bondholders more interest, it washes out. Now what matters is how much do I dilute beyond the interest I pay you. Okay. But it affects, of course, the inflation rate. Yes, we will have that soon. But so far, I switched off the aggregate risk. So with aggregate risk, it depends how you add aggregate risk. And Gautam will actually move now on, whereas then not only us, but there also is also a banking sector. Okay, so there are banks who then are active as well. And then the wealth share matters too between the banking sector and the non-banking sector. Here, just looked at the non-banking sector for now. There's just the government and the money. And I've switched off the banking sector. Now we can bring the banking sector back into the picture. Okay, so let me just give you some outline. So what I will do now, we'll make a break, and now we do bank regulation. Essentially, we introduce a banking sector, and now we have two sectors. We have this us, idiosyncratic risk guys with each idiosyncratic Brownian, and then there will be the banks. They also have idiosyncratic risk to some extent, and they're active in the marketplace. And then what I will do is I will come back briefly and talk about adding this monetary friction. Then it's transaction cost for the medium of exchange role, and then Andre will take over and does QE, QT, and unconventional interest rate policies and everything. Okay. Now, I am tempted to say to skip the break. No? I had a big sigh. Okay, let's meet at 10:20 again, or 10:25. 10:25.